Let's take the action and emotions cards. So this one, you can just see it along the top here, action and emotions. And these cards are good ones to do on their own because they're very powerful, each piece. So if I don't have them in fire element, in the 5-element wheel order. I'm just going to put them forward. So I've got the fire element is cross crawls. We have breathing. We have the sea of tranquility, calming points, and hydration. So you can see they're all really different what you could participate in. Let's look at hydration. So one of the things, I know people have heard, water is important for you. Make sure you stay hydrated. I know everybody understands that point. But I'm going to talk about it from a bioenergetic wellness perspective, in that when you work with water, it actually will boost the energy to ease and flow. So it's just a really simple way of responding. And the thing about water is, from an emotion perspective, is it's on the water element, fear and anxiety. So if we're feeling fearful or if we are a bit anxious and the anxiety is kind of picking up, we can actually, with water, transform us to confidence and peace. And it's really lovely to know that a sip of water might be all you need to just kind of calm the whole system down. Now, if it's a big anxiety that you're working on or a high stress level, this may not be efficient enough, but it is enough to transition the body in a bioenergetic way, in that it's going to enhance energy into the system. And if you stay hydrated, that balance and flow can be very helpful. So I'm not going to say you need to drink so many glasses of water or anything, because it's actually just taking a couple of sips of water and just bringing it into the system so the cell structure can work better. Right? And the other thing that you can do when you sip water, I'll just show you. So I'm just going to have my sip of water here. Just to swirl it around in the mouth just a little bit, that first sip. And all the sensors in the mouth go, oh, you have water. You have a liquid. We're going to get ready for that liquid. And the digestive enzymes are able to engage. So that's one little piece, because some people will guzzle the water straight back. They'll take a water bottle, just shoot it straight back, guzzle it straight, and the system doesn't even know it got anything, and it'll actually just flush through the system. So you just want to make sure you let the sensors know you're doing something and that you care, and then the body will be able to react. The other piece is we have, called this water spot. So at the bottom of the xiphoid process, the bottom of the center of the sternum and then the ribs come down like this. Okay, right at the bottom there, you go down to the belly button. You're going to go midway between those 2 points, right about in here. And if you rub that point will help disperse the water where it's most needed. Now, if you're staying hydrated all the time, the muscles will have the water that they need. And then from the muscles, it would go to the organs, and then from the organs to the brain. So this is going to help make sure that the water circulates through the body and that the brain does get that opportunity as well. And sometimes that gets forgotten because the muscles are like, no, give me more water, I need some. And so we want to be able to make sure the brain also clears. For those people that kind of get a brain fog in the middle of the afternoon, that's usually when people would really like to have a little bit of a nap. That is when the water elements, bladder and kidney, have their prime time for processing. And they need water in order for that to happen. So if you kind of forgot to drink all morning long and then lunch came and went, and you actually haven't drunk enough water, then when it gets down to that spot, it can really pull the body down while it tries to do its processing. And that's where people feel that lull in the day. And all they would need is to just boost it up with a little bit of water. And that can be enough to just reset everything in motion. And some of the most creative times can then happen from 3 to 5 in the afternoon because you have the hydration there that you need. Okay, so that's all about water. So let's take a look at breathing. We have done that in a couple of the other videos. And I just want to point out again that we have emotions that go with these actions. So the metal element is all about processing guilt, grief, and regret. That's from Chinese medicine. In Touch for Health, those are the three kind of pieces that we latch onto when we're balancing to bring flow to the systems, is about, trying to transition out of maybe some regretful moments you might have. What we're transitioning to is enthusiasm and letting go. And enthusiasm is, once you've let go, what's possible? We really want to bring that in. So now there's a couple of things we can do for breathing. There are different breathing exercises. In the Bioenergetic Essentials book, we have the 4, it's kind of like a box breath is what they call it. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. The only thing that I would like to comment about all of those different breathing techniques is, in the case of the It's in the Cards deck, we're talking about awareness. And a lot of people actually aren't aware of their breath. So what I would encourage you to think about is how you keep that expansion and contraction of breathing happening. So even though you might breathe in for 4, hold for 4, then breathe out for 4, you don't want to go breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. You don't want to breathe that tension. You want it to be a fluid expansion and contraction. And that expansion and contraction is what actually builds energy that you can store. So in Tai Chi, we talk about the lower dantian below the belly button is actually a warehouse for energy storage. And when you participate in activities that are constantly boosting your energy, bioenergetic, when you're constantly doing that, you create this storage unit of energy. And so the body just knows that it's always going to be supplied. It gets very comfortable in knowing it has enough energy for all the things it wants to do. So I encourage you to breathe with expansion and contraction in mind, because that is what's going to actually build energy and allow you to store it. Okay, so now let's just play a little bit with this. I'm going to step back. What I'd like you to do is breathe in and then let that go. Just notice what that felt like in the lungs. Probably hit a place where you actually stopped and you couldn't get any more air in. So what I want you to do is tap from your shoulder to your palm. So we're tapping down, firm tap. Might sound louder on the microphone. And we're going to go the other way. That's 3 times. Now what I'd like you to do is take a breath in again. And let that out. You may notice you got more oxygen in. Having formerly been an asthmatic, I always felt like when I went to breathe in, there wasn't enough lung. Like I just felt like I could have taken more air in, but there was no more room left. That's the way I kind of felt. And now when I breathe in, it's like I could just keep going forever and then breathe out. And just by that tapping, it actually expands a little bit more. It actually opens the villi, the little hairs inside the lungs, has them stand up, and they're going to grab onto that air and process the oxygen in a much more meaningful way. From lung to thumb is the energy line, the lung meridian. And so what we did is we just really woke it up by tapping down, moving the chi through that space. That's a wonderful exercise that you can do to help change breathing. And if you're someone who suffers from colds, coughs, those kinds of things, you may find that valuable to add in every day. The other thing that you can do is we had the Sea of Tranquility where the hands went across, the teddy bear, and he's got his hands crossed here, and the fingertips end up on 2 points just below the collarbone. I've got my microphone there, so I'm just going to be conscious of that. There are 2 points there. It's kind of the width of your hand, pinky finger to thumb. And if you rub in those 2 points, that's actually lung point. And that's a great place to be able to just send a little bit of extra love and open up opportunity. Okay, so if we let that go, now take a deep breath in. Now it feels like I have even more lungs, and I actually could have taken more air in, which is lovely. All right, so it's a different way to think about breathing. And in Tai Chi, we have several exercises that we do, which expands the breath, expands it through whole body movement, and can change the way that you function. So if that's something of interest, that's the Tai Chi wellness videos that you can find also on my YouTube channel. All right, Michelle Greenwell's YouTube channel. Okay, so that's breathing. So let's go to Sea of Tranquility, because we were just there rubbing the points at the end where our fingers were. All right, Sea of Tranquility. So this actually in Tai Chi as well, we have what they call the middle gate. And that's when the space opens up in that heart center. It allows the energy to flow from the bottom, from the tailbone, cerebral spinal pump. The fluid can come up, doesn't get stuck at the shoulders, but actually comes straight up to the top of the head. And so this Sea of Tranquility, sorry, it's out of the light, can be a wonderful way for transitioning. The emotions for that are envy and criticism. So how you judge other people and you evaluate what they're doing based on your standards. And you transition that over to empathy and sympathy, which is, if you were standing in their footsteps, how might you feel? How might you be thinking? And what might you not know about them that allows them to make the choices they make, which are different than the choices you would make? And so this is a way to really start to understand better. So Sea of Tranquility then, just so you can see, because you can't see it where I'm sitting there. So you're just crossing the hands over and you put it at the heart center. So you could have one hand there if you wanted. Sometimes we put it lower dantian, underneath the belly button. It'd be there. You can be one hand here, one hand a little bit higher. They can go over top of each other. And you can also touch the thumbs together. And if you cross, so it's more with the elbows down, your fingertips end up on those lung points. So you could actually hook up earth element to the metal element, to the breathing. And just nice deep breaths there, holding that space. It's really lovely to know the Sea of Tranquility, coming to your heart space, coming home to yourself is a wonderful thing to realize, because sometimes I don't think we realize so much about how important it is to be really with ourselves. All right, so that's Sea of Tranquility. So let's go to neurovascular holding points. So these are calming points on this card because it's part of this set. And so this one is taking anger and resentment and transforming that. And we're transforming to content and happiness. And it's just putting the fingertips on the forehead. So now you may have a situation where you lost your cool, said a few things you shouldn't have said, maybe acted in a way you shouldn't have acted. Be able to put the fingertips on the forehead and to calm the system back down. This can be very helpful. And then also to play the scene over in your mind. So maybe you said some words that you shouldn't have said. You could transform that. So you could, in your mind, you could do an apology. And maybe you make it real, but for now it can just be just playing the scene of what that apology might look like, what you would say. Perhaps you fell and you got really angry because you had tripped yourself. It was your own fault, but you got angry about it. And let's say you hurt yourself. And what you might want to do is kind of replay that tripping. Imagine, you've got surrounded by bubble wrap or something, and as you fall on the ground, all of the bubbles burst and pop and everything, and you're protected. So you could actually recreate what happened so that the body could calm from that and let go of any anguish related to it. And that's where the contentment or happiness can resolve out of that. And I did talk about those calming points when I did the happiness formula. So there's a little bit more tidbits there. So feel free to watch that video. All right. You're holding your fingers really lightly and you're just calmly breathing and everything takes care of itself. When I talked about the neurovascular holding points in the other video, I talked about how the blood comes up and into the front brain. So any back brain kind of emotional things that was like fight and flight, survival mechanism, then you put your fingertips to the forehead and the body calms down. And then it's like, oh, I can actually think of a resolution for this. I can actually calm myself. I can go forward. I'm not paralyzed. So it's a way to really assist. If somebody is sick or has been injured and you can't really do too much, somebody else is applying first aid or something, to be able to put the fingertips on the forehead right away can be a really good tool for helping to calm the system and to help get that healing process started right away. Okay, let's go to the cross crawls. This is a lovely one. You could use it as an assessment before doing the switches, and then you could go back and do it again after switches and notice how much more coordinated you are. But what I'm going to do is just do it as an exercise rather than as an assessment tool. And the emotions that we can transform here are worry, sorrow, maybe hate, and we can transform that over to love, joy, and calm, all with a few simple actions. So the cross crawls are really important, that you move the shoulder seam and that you move the hip seam. That is sending information back up to the brain, which coordinates thought patterns with movement patterns, also for learning new material or processing material. So when I go to do the cross crawl, I could easily touch my hand to my knee, but you can see I'm not really moving my shoulder. So that's okay. It's a cross brain work, so there is integration, but there isn't as much messaging coming from the shoulder seam and the hip seam as possibly could happen if I went like this. All right, so here's this action. And what we're doing is we are integrating the front dimension. So how we move forward in space. Also top half to bottom half, right to left. Okay, then we want to go behind. So we're going to touch hand to foot behind. And if you noticed, it was hard for you to transition to this one. That's where the switches can be very helpful. This is back dimension, so that was rubbing the tailbone. This can be a great way to help support being able to integrate this. So we are on the back dimension, connecting front to back. And again, moving shoulders and hip seams. So now we're going sideways. And we're lifting opposite sides and extending. All right. Now, this one was a little tough to get into. You notice this is side to side switching. That would have been here, or on the video about that. Okay. Perfect. So there we have that. You can use that as an assessment tool, or you can just use it as an exercise. So I used it as an assessment tool if I wanted to do the switches, and just to notice how effective the switches have been. You don't have to, you can just do them. But these are great to do if you've been sitting for a while. Get up and move. You're engaging all the different ways of moving, which engages the brain to think in a different way. Right. And that is the action and emotion cards.